This is Ginge here talking about my Titan builds for this season, Season 18. So we're going to start things off with the Solar Titan. Going to be rocking the Loreley Splendor helm. Even after it got nerfed, it still does amazing work. It got nerfed by removing the improved restoration effects. It's now restoration ×1. However, whenever you are critically wounded with a full class ability, or whenever you cast your barricade, you'll create a sunspot at your location, which will give you restoration ×1. It's really good in end level content for just auto casting your barricade and giving you a healing spot. It'll get you out a lot of tough predicaments. As far as stats are concerned, highest resilience that you can get, high discipline, and then recovery. Don't really need any of the other stats. As far as the subclass is concerned, I run Rally Barricade because it has the shortest cooldown by 8 seconds, but it still matters. Catapult Lift, the Bonk Hammer, just really good. And then Healing Grenade, you can also use things like the Thermite Grenade. As far as aspects, we got Roaring Flames and Sol Invictus. Roaring Flames, final blows with your solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities, stacks ×3. Allows your hammer to deal more damage, and while the Roaring Flames is active, your uncharged melee deals solar damage and scorches targets. Kind of nifty, but honestly, I just go and pick up my throwing hammer each time. Sol Invictus, solar ability final blows, hammer soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets creates sunspots. Your abilities regen faster, and your super drains more slowly while standing in a sunspot. Sunspots apply scorch and deal damage to targets inside, and entering a sunspot applies restoration. Now, as far as fragments are concerned, I run a multitude of fragments for this one. Ember of Torches makes you radiant. It's so easy with your throwing hammer just to proc getting radiant. Ember of Empyrean. This allows your restoration and radiant effects to be extended, thanks to Mr. Throwing Hammer and Healing Grenade. And then Ember of Solace gives those an additional increase. And then lastly, Ember of Ashes to apply more scorched targets. This is good for mostly trying to get some ignitions. I find it to be a lot easier, or a lot harder to get ignitions on this class unless you're running like Thermite or Fusion Grenade, or even Solar Grenade. The other variant of the class that I use is going to be with Synthoceps. This is going to buff your melee damage and is going to increase it based upon the number of enemies that you're next to. It increases your melee lunge range, not relevant. Improves melee and super damage whenever you're surrounded. That is super relevant. It can make your hammer that you throw one-shot enemies a lot easier, and your super damage to be just so much better. Allows you to add clear rooms with your super much easier. As far as weapons that I use with this, pretty much any weapon with incandescent, like the Strident Whistle, the BXR, or my favorite, the Callus Mini Tool, are just the best for this. I also will run my fixed odds occasionally with it. But yeah, this is the overall, just, you can kill anything, and when you're picking up your hammer, you also get Cure, which gives you a little bit of a health bump every time if your hammer has struck a target. Picking it up gives you Cure. This allows you to sit right on bosses, run face first into enemies. It's a really strong build, especially for survival. Nextly, we're going to show off our Arc subclass. There's a couple different ways that you can run this build, and a couple ways that I've seen people running. You can go with the firepower with your Heart of Inmost Light. It's all about the storm grenades in this build. So we're going to briefly review Heart of Inmost Light, by far one of the most underrated Titan exotics in the game. Definitely a must use, find a build for it. Using an ability, your grenade, your melee, or your barricade, or class ability, empowers the other two abilities. Empowering means they have faster regen, melees and grenades deal more damage, and your barricades have more hit points. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the subclass. For the subclass, I'm actually using the Thruster ability. It's mostly because it has a slightly faster cooldown, and doesn't require an animation to actually use it, so you get the best cooldown for your Heart of Inmost Light. Strafe Lift, and then Seismic Strike. You can also use the Thunderclap ability. I find it pretty good for taking on champions that you've stunned. Lastly, we are going to be using the Storm Grenade in this build. It is just broken. So broken. And we'll show you with the aspects. First aspect, we're going to be running Knockout, critically wounding a target or breaking their shield, infuses your melee attacks with arc energy, and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. Defeating targets with your melee starts health regeneration and makes you amplified. Now, Touch of Thunder. Touch of Thunder does a lot of things for a lot of different grenades. Flashbangs become increased, pulse grenades become increased, lightning grenades, you get an extra charge, and they start jolting. But the main thing, the storm grenades. After detonating, creating a roaming thunder cloud that tracks nearby targets and fires bolts of lightnings at the foes beneath it. This is insane. And you can even make it even better with your fragments. We're going to be running Spark of Resistance. This is just a little bit of damage resistance. You gotta have it. It's one of the best fragments for Arc 3.0. Spark of Shock now makes your storm grenades jolt. Spark of Ions, defeating jolted targets gives you ionic traces. And then Spark of Magnitude, increasing their overall duration. Storm grenades are seriously overpowered in this build, and just chaining them over and over and over to wipe whole waves of ads very easily. Lastly, we'll be talking about what kind of super you want to run for this. I typically run the Thunder Crash Titan, just because it's burst damage. Fist of Havoc's kind of mediocre at best, in my opinion, and is very seldom useful for boss damage. Next, we'll be talking about the Sentinel Titan. The exotic that I choose for this one is the Ursa Furiosa. This exotic states that when blocking incoming damage with your Sentinel shield, you will generate orbs for your team, and the guarded damage is then converted to super energy up to 50%. Very good for helping chain supers and hard GMs, or pretty much in any high level content. I like using it in Master Catch Crash. It's good for a nice roaming protection. Your teammates also get a Weapons of Light buff, and that is 40% bonus damage, so it's really good for helping your teammates deal some extra damage against champions while blocking any incoming shots from them or damaging the boss. As far as the subclass is concerned, we will be running the Sentinel Shield. We will be running the Towering Barricade, Shield Bash, or you can run a Shield Throw. I just like Shield Bash because it works better with Echo of Leeching. Vortex Grenade because it's simply overpowered. Can also run Suppressor Grenade. Bastion. Casting your super grants an overshield to nearby allies. Casting your Barricade grants an overshield to yourself and nearby allies and empowers it, enabling it to slowly regenerate the overshield of allies bunkered behind it and extend their overshield duration. Insane perk. Just constantly giving overshields for your teammates. Controlled Demolition. Hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to a volatile target makes them explode. Grants you and nearby allies health regeneration when the volatile target explodes near you. This is actually really good because if you're ever swarmed by enemies, using a vortex grenade and just killing a group of enemies will give you health back. And this is for you and any nearby allies. As far as fragments are concerned, I typically just run the Echo of Undermining for weakening targets, Echo of Leeching to give us health regenerations off for melees. Shield Bash is really easy, and you get an overshield with your Shield Bash, which is just great. So I run Echo of Obscurity. Finisher Final Blows will grant invisibility, and it also gives you a recovery bump. You could run something else if you so choose. Something like Echo of Expulsion to make your void abilities have a bloom effect. That's entirely up to you. Our last build for the Void Titan is actually going to be on the Bubble Titan. This is going to be running the Aeon Safe, the one that allows you to finish higher tier enemies for heavy ammo. Pretty much all my characters have at least one of these builds. Whenever you finish, use a finisher on elite, you generate special ammo, and finishers on bosses or mini bosses give you heavy ammo. The next part is not really that relevant because not many people actually run the other two sects. Pretty much this middle one's just the one you want to run. As far as the subclass, we don't really change too much. Pretty much just put on Ward of Dawn because it's just a good super by itself. It doesn't need much else to buff it, and it just, you know, a huge dome gives your teammates just a safe place on the battlefield. With Echo of Obscurity, your finishers will now give you invisibility, allowing you to get in, get the enemy finish for heavy ammo, and then get gone. Very easy. Lastly, we'll be talking about our Stasis Titan. Now, this is a build I haven't really tried too recently, up until now, and I actually really enjoyed it. The amount of crystals that you can create with this build is just insane. So we'll be running the Hoarfrost Z. So this exotic states, when you're using your stasis subclass, your barricade becomes a wall of stasis crystals that slows targets when it's created. Standing behind this barricade will grant you and your allies a rally barricade, increased weapon reload speed, stability, and range. Now you'll be running the Behemoth. I usually run Rally Barricade, shorter cooldown. I run Glacier Grenade for additional crystals. Diamond Lance is honestly just because it has a lot more fragment slots. And then Tectonic Harvest for stasis shards. As far as fragments are concerned, we're going to be running Whisper of Fissures. This is going to increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis whenever you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Because our build is all about stasis crystals, this makes it really easy to just clean out ads with either our barricade or our Glacier Grenade. Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts the recharge rate of your grenade. And yeah, it's also a resilience bump, which is really good. And this also counts for weapons like with Headstone. Whisper of Conduction, just to give your stasis shards tracking. Also good stat bumps. Whisper of Rending, this allows your kinetic weapons to deal more damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets, allowing you to one-shot them things with Ias Luna and other weapons. Whisper of Rime, this gives you a stasis overshield when you're collecting your shards. Now, if you are below maximum health, you will actually just get a health regeneration from it, which is really key on keeping yourself alive. Lastly, weapons I like to pair with this thing is pretty much just the Ias Luna. It's super good with Headstone. You can run light machine guns with also like Headstone. As far as that, I mean, pretty much just make sure to prioritize resilience and discipline because that's how you make your crystals. As far as mods on this go, I pretty much run this as a Font Might build most of the time, but it's got a more generic build with like Font of Wisdom and Elemental Shards and Well of Restoration. But you can just pretty much just stack on Font of Might and just use it for damage phases as well. I think weapons like Reed's Regret and Thoughtless get a huge benefit here. So that concludes our Titan builds for Season 18. In my next video, we will be doing one of 3. It's a poll down below in the comments. Choose between mod selection for builds, you know, how to implement good mods for your builds, and what mods are best to be looking out for from A to 1. Or we will be doing exotic weapons from the kiosk. What weapons should you be putting your exotic ciphers towards? Or number 3 would be legendary weapons and roles to look for. Yeah, I pretty much use the same weapons over and over and over, sure, but they're kind of best in slot for a lot of things. So if you would like to see that, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.